What you know, Alibis? Welcome to another episode of Pretty Lies and Alibis. I'm Gigi. It's Wednesday, February 12th. Hope you've had a good day. We're going to break down day 2 of testimony in the Rose Petal murder trial. Just a quick reminder, if you're watching on YouTube, don't forget to hit subscribe, like the video, share it with your friends, and you can click that little bell icon if you want notifications of when I post new content. Let's jump right in. The first witness of the day was Kaylin Ford. She's the primary crime scene investigator at the house. When she got on scene, she met with investigators and officers for a briefing and also did a walkthrough to find out where things were located. She took photos while she was inside, and they showed these in the court and some of those on the live stream, except for the graphic ones. They just showed a lot of different angles of the exterior of the house, front and back, gates to the backyard, door handles, that sort of thing. Then we move inside and you see drag marks and pooled blood on the floor. There was a large pool of blood underneath the couch, and the couch had blood stains on it as well. There was also a flower stem in the photo. The witness said it looked like arterial bleeding and also the site of the initial attack. In her opinion, the couch was moved back after the incident. And looking at the photo where that pooled blood was located, it wouldn't have been there if the couch was in the position it was seen in the photo for sure. They show a photo of Christina's right hand, which had a chipped thumbnail, obviously a sign of her trying to defend herself. They show another photo of the couch. There's rose petals and leaves on the floor, and her phone was in a pool of blood. They show flower stems under a towel and blood spatter under a table. The size and shape of the blood spatter showed the witness, like the couch, the table was moved back into place after the incident. There were more rose petals coming from the hallway into the sitting room. Rose petals were on top of the table near Christina's purse, which was open, and inside the purse, there were a few rose petals as well. There was a blood stain on the wall by the closed curtains in the sitting room. The witness said that likely was a transfer stain where an object or a thing with blood on it touched the surface. There was blood on a sitting chair near a window in the sitting room, blood drops near a chair. It was further away from that initial pooling near the couch, and there was more blood drops on a table. The witness explained that these drops are created by blood falling due to gravity, much like you would see if you had a nosebleed. It was also far from the couch where that big pool of blood was and where she thinks that initial attack happened. There were clumps of Christina's hair found in blood in the sitting room next to some drag marks. There was a blood stain on the interior side of the front door, which she believes is a transfer stain. They show a photo of Christina's body at the end of some drag marks. It looked to me like maybe she had a pair of blue scrubs on. The witness collected the rose petals and also bundled these stems with a rubber band. For the most part, the stems didn't have many petals or leaves. There were a couple of green leaves on one stem. There's a photo of a wildflower on the floor and a photo of a rose next to a yellow wildflower. She said she collected several wildflowers inside the house. She did not find any vases or containers you would put flowers in. She took swabs for DNA testing and also did fingerprinting. She did attend Christina's autopsy and took photos. We did see one picture from that today. It was a photo of Christina's left hand with her engagement ring on. She also took fingernail clippings and buccal swabs from Christina. On cross, the defense asks about the wildflowers and what do you mean? She said it's things you would find in a yard or a field. There were some in the front of the sitting room and then some near Christina's body. The roses and the wildflowers were very scattered. The witness didn't see any pattern or arrangement. And that was it for her testimony. They did hold her in case she needs to be recalled. The next witness, Eric Turner, he's a deputy with the Greenville County Sheriff's Office. He is one of the SROs in Greenville County. Our schools have school resource officers. Some schools have one dedicated. Some SROs go to different schools throughout the day. He did respond to the crime scene. He had 4 elementary schools where he was working and was in between schools on the road when the call came through about Bradley Post finding Christina's body. So he decided to respond to make sure there was no threat to nearby schools. He was there within a few minutes of the call coming out. He stayed with Bradley Post while other officers checked the house. He asked about Christina's daughter and found out he was the SRO at her school. He called the school to verify that she was in attendance that day, and she was. He told staff to keep her there, locked down the school, and then he went back to that school. He didn't want to disturb her until they really knew what was going on. The deputy told staff to just let her have a regular day and leave as normal. He said she normally left with a family member and they thought that would be okay for that day. On cross, they asked if he had a body cam on, which he did, and he's asked if he recorded any of the activities at the house. He said he did. As soon as he got out of his car, he turned his body cam on. The defense asks about schools. If a child doesn't want to go home, do you make them? He said that normally they would get DSS involved and then they would look into why the child wouldn't want to go home. The next witness, Christina's sister, Tina Parcell. Christina was 2 years younger than her sister, and that's who Christina was living with when she was killed. She said their relationship was close in childhood up to about the early 2000s. At that point, Christina got married for a second time. The witness got married for the first time, and she said they were close, but their lives weren't really intertwined. They were friends, but not best friends. Christina started dating John Mello in December of 2008, and the two dated until October of 2015, just under 7 years. She said in 2010, Christina wrote a letter cutting off contact with her family, saying that she only needed true love in her life. So from 2010 to 2014, the family didn't see Christina. In July of 2014, Christina gets in touch with her parents and tells them she has a 2-year-old daughter. Tina and Christina reconnected at a fast food restaurant where Tina met her niece for the first time. The first couple of years of the child's life, Christina was raising her. The witness didn't meet Mello until 2014 and saw him a few times up until 2015. She said at that point, Mello was still living with his wife. Tina said she supported her sister emotionally, and the 4-year estrangement was still really tough, but she was trying to get over that. The custody battle continued for years. Christina started the relationship with Brad Post within a few months of ending things with John Mello. Then in January of 2020, the sisters got closer after their mom was diagnosed with stage 4 lymphoma. The two of them went to lunch and talked about what they could do to help their mom, how they could take care of their dad. And at this lunch, Christina said she wanted Tina to be in her life more. At this point, Christina was living in a duplex and had visitation with her daughter. John had primary custody, and Christina had the standard visitation agreement, which is a lot of times every other weekend, Mother's Day, every other Christmas, couple of weeks in the summer. That's how it is here in South Carolina, at least. In October of 2020, that's when Mello left the United States with their child and went to Italy. He emailed Christina and said, "We won't be here for the next visit." Didn't know where they were or why they were there until they saw a Facebook post by John Mello showing their location from a sign on the street behind them. At that point, her and Christina started researching how to get a child back from a foreign country. At this point, Christina's lease on her duplex was ending and Tina was estranged from her husband. Christina was typically staying with Post when she didn't have her daughter for visitation. They did reach out to the State Department, since within the State Department, they have a department that deals with children being taken out of the country. So they reached out to them. You have to provide them with all of the family court orders and legal documents. Once you do that, the U.S. authority reaches out to Italy and then it goes down a chain from there. Christina talked to her daughter on Christmas 2020 after 2.5 months of not talking to her. The witness said that Italy's government really was acting on Christina's behalf. They scheduled a hearing in February of 2021. So Christina called her sister and they both went to Italy. Court was on a Friday. They flew back home on Sunday. The courts did not decide about sending the child home that day. They did see her while they were in Italy. Mello brought their child to the courthouse. Tina was not allowed inside for the hearing, and neither was the child. So authorities asked Tina to keep an eye on her, but also told her not to talk to her niece. In March or April of 2021, Christina went back to Italy for another hearing. She went alone. There was no immediate decision made about sending the child back, but a few days later, they told Christina she would get custody of the child. Mello and the child met Christina at a police station. Christina had to get a passport issue fixed before she could leave. Christina and her sister had 2 hired people to provide protection to them over there in Italy while they were in court and also while they went from point A to point B. The same staff members helped Christina on both of her trips there. In April of 2021, Christina and the child come back to Greenville and they move in with Tina. The 3 of them later moved to the home on Canebrake where Christina was murdered. The witness said the custody dispute with Mello was active until the day Christina died. The witness said they would not let the child play outside by herself because of the custody dispute. They did not want her to get taken. Around that time, Tina's employer got an envelope full of Christina and Mello's court documents. Also, the envelopes with the nudes of Christina were sent to Christina's attorney, her employer, neighbors. We know it was sent to her dad's business. The state shows the witness several photos of Christina that were sent to people. We were not shown those. They were sent between June and July of 2021. Christina went to the police as well as the postal inspector. While looking at the photos, Tina said she recognizes her sister from the hair and the tattoos and thinks those photos were taken around 2010 or 2011 during the time she was dating John Mello. She said Christina would have been around 30 or 31 years old when those photos were taken. From the time they moved to the home where Christina was murdered in, COVID was still around, but it was kind of lessening. So they got the child involved in swimming. She had friends in the neighborhood. She went into the 4th grade, and she said their mom would babysit the child if Christina needed her to. On the day of the murder, October 13th, 2021, before the witness left for work, she knew Christina had her job interview, and Christina was just trying to get her day started and out the door. She took her daughter to school, but Christina forgot the kids' school communication folder and came back to the house to get it. She told her sister she had a hair appointment later, and also her daughter had gymnastics. The last thing Christina said before she left was asking what they were cooking for supper and walked out the door. The witness left in a rental car around 8:30 a.m. for her job in downtown Greenville. She didn't know about the incident until she got a voicemail from Bradley Post saying there was an emergency at the house and she needed to come home, so the witness left work. Post called while she was in the car and told Tina he thought Christina was dead. The witness got back to the house around 11:30 that morning. She explains they didn't have a key for the back door, so they would leave it unlocked when they were home, but at night they would lock it. She said when they would come home after being somewhere, they always went in through the front door. She said there are curtains in the front of the house that were always kept open because there was a lot of light coming in. Christina had plants. Christina's daughter would play with friends in the front yard, and they didn't worry people would see them since they weren't really in that room a lot. After the murder, the witness talked to an investigator in his car, and she told the investigator she thought John Mello did it. She said, "I know he was supposedly in Italy, but you never know." The witness never met Zach Hughes and said just this week she found an email from John Mello where he CC'd. And then there is an objection that didn't come in. So we do not know what that email was about. She doesn't think Christina ever had any interactions with Zach Hughes either. Regarding the cocaine that was found in the front room, Tina doesn't use it. They didn't have it in the house. Christina didn't use it. So they don't really know how it got there. Now, the court appointed a guardian ad litem for the child, and the guardian and Christina talked frequently, and the guardian would do home visits. On cross, they moved into the home Christina was murdered in the month after Christina and the child returned back to the area. The defense says, you say you weren't involved in the custody dispute. And the witness says, that's not what I said. We had just reconciled, meaning her and her sister. She says, John threatened to get them for kidnapping at one point. Defense asked the witness if Christina gave up custody of her child. She said that Christina and John had an agreement. And when Christina was not getting the visitation, that's when the court actions started. The witness agrees Mello had custody, but wouldn't let Christina see their child. The defense asks, was it after he went to Italy that she tried to get custody? And the witness said no. Both John and Christina tried to modify their agreement over time. The witness knew Brad Post. He was a customer in her father's cigar store. And the witness also worked for a company that her boss purchased from Brad Post. Christina was working part-time as a vet tech when she died. And when asked if Post was helping her financially, the witness said she assumed so. She's asked about John Mello being a dual citizen of the U.S. and Italy, and as well as the child having dual citizenship. She said she cannot ascertain that. When Christina and the child returned from Italy, the witness was at the airport. We know Brad Post was there because that's where he proposed. There was a representative from Lindsey Graham's office, as well as friends and family. They moved into the home she would be killed in on May 14th of 2021. The defense asks about some discrepancies of where everyone stayed in the house. Did you tell investigators the child slept with her mother and didn't have a room? That room that was meant for her was turned into a playroom. The witness says she may have misspoken because her sister was killed in that house, and at that point, she was homeless. She says she was homeless because the house, unbeknownst to them, was in foreclosure, and it was just going to cost too much for them to try to keep that house. She said Post didn't come by the house daily. They were on and off again, and the defense says you told the investigators he came daily. She doesn't remember saying that. The defense says in the envelope with the photos, there was also website posts for an escort service. Were you aware of that part of your sister's past? The witness said she heard about it in family court. There was an objection there. On October 19th of 2021, the child was put into foster care for emergency protective custody. The witness said the police came to the house around 10:30 that night. The witness never had custody of the child, but she did reach an agreement with Mello. He got custody of their child in August of 2023 and still has custody of her to this day. The defense points out that Mello was exonerated of the charges of taking the child to Italy, and the witness said it was a directed verdict and not exonerated. South Carolina says a non-custodial parent has no rights to their child. On redirect, after Christina's murder, the child had an ex parte emergency placement for a few days. The witness goes through all the dates and places the child stayed and says she has not seen her niece since August of 2024. She has rights to see her, and they are currently battling this out in family court. She said there is currently an appeal going on as well. The defense wants to keep the witness under subpoena, and that was it for her testimony. The next witness was Michael Minadalt. He's a photographer, and he worked for John Mello in 2020 and 2021 for several months. He did odd jobs like yard work, cleaning the house to get it ready to sell. John paid him in cash. He knew Mello for years. And the witness met Zach through John, And while John was in Italy, the witness and Zach worked at John's house. It was only for a couple of weeks. He was stopped by two investigators at a vape store and taken into custody. He was asked if he had any involvement in the crime, and the witness had no clue anything had happened. He did give investigators access codes to his phone, gave his phone willingly, did a buccal swab, and cooperated. On cross, you knew Zach for 2 weeks. And the witness says yes. And he says, he's a good man in my opinion, and that's off the record. The next witness, Master Deputy Blake Wolf, he's with the Greenville County Sheriff's Office. He was the co-lead investigator on the case. The first thing he did in this case was a Google geofence for the location around where Christina was murdered. If you allow Google to store your location data, investigators can get access to it through a search warrant for a certain radius and time frame that shows all the devices in that area. They did not recover anything of significance. October 19th and the 20th, he went back to the house and continued canvassing the neighborhood. He said they would go at different times just to try to catch people when they were at home. He was the one that spoke to Ms. Gorman. She was the witness yesterday who said she saw Zach putting on gloves and getting ready essentially in front of her house. Another investigator spoke to her the day of Christina's murder. On October 14th, they got the video of the suspect leaving on a bike. October 22nd, he and investigator Sparkman learned the previous witness knew Zach, and so they wanted to speak with him. They were told he rides city buses, and they found him at a bus stop. He did give consent for them to take a DNA sample at the homicide office. So the witness started searching for Zach. He did a basic Google search for Zach Hughes in Greenville. There were several articles about him being a pianist and famous for being able to play songs by memory. He was able to get a photo of Zach's driver's license from the DMV, and the previous witness, Michael, confirmed the person in that photo was Zach. The witness looked at the DMV account and found the address Zach was living at while he was here in Greenville. He explained a few months before Christina's murder, there were traffic cameras installed in the city limits, which falls inside where Zach's address was. The witness thought they could find photos or videos of him, and he found looking through DMV records that Zach had a gold Ford Ranger. They went to the flock cameras, which are the cameras that take photos of your license plate. Once the witness had Zach's license plate number, he found 55 images of Zach's car from those flock cameras. There were 10 to 15 cameras in the city limits at that time, and they retained photos for 90 days. He did find 2 photos of Zach's car from the day of Christina's murder. At 2:31 p.m., there's a photo of the truck showing a bike in the back. This was at the Buncombe and Rutherford intersection. If you're from Greenville, you know where this is. That was significant to the witness because the video of the suspect showed him leaving on a black bike. The second photo was taken on the day of the murder at 7:30 p.m. It's very dark. It's on East Washington and Lawrence. His conclusion was there was a lot of similarities of the suspect's bike and the one that was seen in the back of Zach's truck. After finding these photos, he got a search warrant for the residence where Zach was living, also for his phone and to get a DNA sample. He also said in the very beginning of this investigation, they were told John Mello was in Italy at the time of the murder. 9 days after the murder, on October 22nd, they executed that search warrant at the residence Zach was staying at. The officers met at a predetermined location a few miles away from the address, and they had an unmarked car pass by to see if Zach was at home. Zach was leaving, and so they waited until he got back to go to the house and execute that search warrant. They point out Zach did not own the house. He was living with people he met after he came to Greenville. Deputies went to the front and the back of the house. The witness explained the driveway is behind the house, and the witness parked behind Zach's truck. Zach was standing inside the house in front of some double French doors. The witness said Zach had his hands up, and he had his cell phone in his hand. They told him to come out, which he did. He put his phone down on a table inside the house next to him before he walked out. The cell phone was transported to be downloaded. They admit photos of the residence Zach was living in. They knew Christina was killed with a sharp force object, so they were obviously looking for any weapon as well as any kind of clothing with bloodstains and also that bicycle. Zach was alone, and they said on his cell phone they saw he was receiving photos from the family who were in Europe at the time. They did find several bicycles in the garage. Some of those were mounted on the wall, some were just on the ground. Some had dust on them, cobwebs. And to the right of the car in the garage, there was a bike that was upside down and it was perfectly clean. The witness said it was like it was just off the showroom floor. And it looked similar to the one the suspect was seen riding away from the crime scene on. They bring the bike in the courtroom, went right past me. There were bags around the hand grips as well as the pedals. They compared this bike to the photos and concluded there were a lot of similarities. The frame of the bike, the shape of the handlebars, and also the position of the brakes. The truck was taken to the forensic unit. The truck was taken into the forensic unit to be processed, and the witness went there while that was being done. Through the phone location, they found a residence on Indian Flats Trail in Marietta that was also owned by the homeowners Zach was living with. It's about an hour away from the house he was staying at here in the city. They got a search warrant for that residence in mid-April 2023. Most of the homicide unit went. It took so long to get that search warrant because the location data for his cell phone, they didn't have the passcode and only had a partial download. They still didn't have the murder weapon or any clothing the suspect had been seen wearing. They bring in photos from that residence in Marietta. The house is in the middle of the woods on a mountain. The witness said you could walk around naked and nobody would see you. It's very secluded. They show a photo of a deer camera on a tree outside, and then they show a photo of a rounded fire pit area. They also show a closet full of cleaning materials. They did go deep into the woods, but did not locate anything of evidentiary value. They did get a search warrant for that trail camera and also for the SD card. And on that, they found photos of Zach. October 11th, 2 days before the murder, just after 10 a.m., Zach is seen on the camera walking. He has a hoodie or jacket, which was significant to the witness because the suspect was seen wearing a black hoodie. The top of it is gray, like the suspect was seen when he entered the house. They show the photo of that and have the officer say it's a gray sweatshirt. As far as his hair, if you remember, the witness from yesterday said she saw red or sandy blonde hair poking out of the hat and said that she could see a beard. However, in these photos, his hair is shaved on the sides. He does have it up in a what looks to be a ponytail in the back. Zooming in on the photos, you see that hair is buzzed very close on the side. The distance from the mountain house to the crime scene would have taken a little over an hour to drive. On the 55 flock camera photos, only one showed a bike in the back, and that was on the day of the murder. On cross, you said you could walk around naked at that second property, and the witness says yes, it was secluded. The defense says in the photo, is this person, meaning Zach, clean shaven? Do you see a beard on his face? The witness said there was a shadow. Defense says, but do you see a beard? The witness says no. The photo was pretty blurry that we saw, but I did enhance it just to look. He looked very clean shaven to me. I didn't see any facial hair at all on that photo. They talk about the numerous officers at the search warrant. Were they armed? The witness said everyone is armed. The defense says, you said the owners of the house agreed and were cooperative? Yes. Did my client, Mr. Hughes, comply that day? Yes. In 2021, you were in homicide and now you're on the road. Are you a supervisor? The witness said he's a master deputy with several officers underneath him. The defense asked, were you in homicide? Witness says yes, for 3 years. And now you're back on the road? Yes. The last question is if he recalls the first video he said was significant, what time? And the witness does not. On redirect, the date of the photo regarding the beard, when was that? That was October 11th, 2 days before the murder. There's a recross. You just testified you didn't see a beard. The witness said, I said there was a shadow. Defense says, but you just testified you didn't see a beard. The witness says that's correct. The next witness is a recall. Crime scene technician Kaylin Ford. She was tasked with going through the home Zach was living in. She identified Zach's room. The homeowner told where the room was, and she said she could also see personal things. They show a series of photos to the witness. We did not see these. It was a shoebox found in his bedroom with multiple knives and sheaths, a storage bin with his name on the top, a backpack, and a pair of gloves with other miscellaneous items. She did process the bicycle, sprayed it with Blue Star, which shows the presence of possible blood. The left and right handlebar, the seat, and the pedals illuminated, so she swabbed those areas, and then those were put into evidence. She also collected Zach's DNA through a buccal swab, as well as took photos of him. She's asked if she was involved in the case when John Mello returned from Italy. Yes, she took his photos at the detention center and also his buccal swabs. The next witness, Sergeant Allison Wright. She's a forensics field training officer. She helped process Zach's truck. She also photographed and took swabs in places that you would typically touch. And again, used Blue Star to detect the presence of possible blood. There were a few areas that illuminated in the truck. They show photos of the truck at the residence, the insurance card, the truck bed at the processing bay with a bike in the bed of that truck. There were gas cans and ropes in a toolbox that was in the bed of the truck. Behind the front seat was a pair of gloves. There was a pack of gloves behind the seat in the truck that held 6 pairs. They show a photo of those gloves laid out, but there were only 5 in that pack. She explains you can get false positives with Blue Star when it comes to bleach, cleaning products, paints, tarnish, and even some plants. There was no cross for that witness. The last witness of the day is Vanessa Cromelo. She was the guardian ad litem for Christina and John's daughter. She was appointed in October of 2020 when the child was 8 years old. She starts her cases with the parents, talks to third parties, will visit the child at school, talk to the child, and then will eventually prepare a written report for the court. In October of 2020, we know the child was in Italy. She had Mello's email address, and that's the only way they communicated, with the exception of one phone call. She said Mello didn't necessarily cooperate with letting her talk to the child or him. He wanted her to script the questions to the kid, and the witness wasn't comfortable with that. So she waited until the child was back in South Carolina. In April of 2021, the child was ordered to be returned, and Christina was given custody by an agreement. She said it was all highly contested litigation, and Mello frequently emailed her, and she said he was difficult to manage. She did speak with the former guardian ad litem and said after the child was back in the States, Mello harassed, bullied, intimidated her. It was like nothing she had ever seen in her line of work, and as it escalated, she became concerned. For example, he would say she needed to be looking over her shoulder. He was coming for her license. She was going to jail. The witness said that he mentioned her kids by name to her, put terrible things on the internet about her, including her office address and phone number, and accused her of trafficking children. She was also accused of manufacturing child abuse materials in her office. She said he was definitely fired up. Third parties would email her on Mello's behalf. One, an attorney, the other, a private investigator, and somebody she said was a saint. She said it was similar threats arguing on his behalf. She suspected that some of these emails were from Mello himself because of the same phrases used, the capitalization, and what she said was terrible spelling. Her findings were that Mello would go to any lengths to get custody. She said he was clear that nothing was off limits. Hundreds of emails, sometimes represented by attorneys, sometimes not. She said it was the worst case she's ever worked on as far as how the parent acted. In May of 2021, she brought a motion to the court asking for a psychiatric evaluation for Mello and the mom be allowed to end phone calls if the child was uncomfortable. She also got nude photos of Christina. One included male anatomy in one picture. And she said overall, the pictures were pornographic in nature. That was postmarked July 8th, 2021 from Knoxville, Tennessee, with a P.O. box in Greenville as the return address. We know that belonged to Bradley Post. She did call law enforcement. She got another envelope about a month later from Knoxville, and it was the same return address. And instead of opening it, she just called law enforcement. The witness said this would be in line with Mello and what he emailed to her, that he wanted to ruin Christina's reputation and for her to be determined to be unfit. But she said she had an obligation to investigate the allegations by Mello since the child was living in Christina's home. She talked to Christina about the photos and found out they were old and consensual. She said a large part of Mello's concern was he accused Christina of using drugs. Christina took drug screens, and Christina's sister was also asked to have drug screens since they lived together. At one point, the child was tested. There was no evidence of any drug use that they found. She said if they made it to trial, she would have recommended the child stay with Christina. She said the child was thriving and doing well in her custody. She told Mello essentially that he would need to substantiate the claims he was making. She said she has the ability to make a motion to the court to remove a child if things are validated. Mello gave Zach's name to the witness as a character witness to interview. Before the murder, Zach did an affidavit for Mello in his attempt to regain custody and also helped Mello get local representation. An affidavit was filed on October 22nd, 2021, after the murder. The witness said with her mom dead and her dad in Italy, they were back in court dealing with the child's placement. At this point, it's time for cross-exam, but the defense says that the state has opened up the door to bring in the child abuse material. The defense said that they're entitled to ask her now her opinion before and after Christina's passing. We just went over, the witness said prior to Christina's passing, she would have recommended the child stay with her mother. However, we all know after Christina's murder, it was revealed she was involved in producing this child abuse material with her fiance, Bradley Post, with her own daughter, who was 10 at the time, and another minor, as well as dogs. So, of course, the defense wants the jury to hear, well, you made that determination before Christina's murder, but let's talk about after. Would you have kept her with her mom? And so what they want is for this jury to have the full picture of what we know about Christina now. The judge took a break, came back, ultimately said it's still not coming in. The witness does move on to cross-exam and ask if Christina did agree to give Mello custody. The witness said that's her understanding. She's asked, based on your interaction with Christina in this period of time, who is financing the litigation in Italy? The witness says, I know her sister was helping. The defense asks if it's possible that Bradley Post was financing some of this litigation in Italy. The witness said maybe the family litigation and Post may have paid for the bodyguards while Christina was there, but the witness can't be sure. And that was it for the day. So it got a little tense there when we thought maybe this would be a way for the child abuse materials to come in. I wouldn't be surprised if this jury is pretty confused at this point. There's just some things that are very open-ended that can't be resolved right now because of what the judge's ruled can't come in. So that was it for today. Back tomorrow. The live feed will start at 10 a.m. and then I will recap today's testimony in an hour or less tomorrow night. Hope you guys have a good rest of your evening, and we will see you soon.